Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name's Brooke. I'm a friend of Philly AI Connect. Hi. I'm really honored to introduce tonight's keynote speaker, co-host, and panel moderator of tonight's event, which is called The Human Edge in the Age of AI. So Dr. Kaveen Mistry is a board-certified neuroradiologist. He's an educator and a longevity strategist, redefining how we think about health in the modern age. He draws inspiration from his childhood in Africa with the Hadza tribe. And just last year, he published his book called Primal Health Design, 7 Key Paradigms to Reverse Biological Age, which who doesn't want to know how to reverse their biological age, am I right? But it's a nonfiction book that outlines 7 principles for slowing and reversing biological aging by integrating ancestral wisdom with modern science. Dr. Kaveen will also be teaching the STEM program at the Lighthouse, which is Philadelphia's oldest nonprofit. Shout out to Edwin and Julian, who are here tonight. But he will be teaching local youth his breath span methodology, connecting, again, STEM with our health and just continuing that connection. So he's somebody who really is interested in health and humanity, but doesn't shy away from the advancements in technology and using AI, but really focusing on not losing the human touch through our use of technology. So with Dr. Kaveen as our guide, tonight's event will explore humanity's irreplaceable qualities that create real advantages in the age of AI. And it's interesting because we're in a room full of people who I'm sure are interested or invested or working in AI, and you might be really familiar with like the brains of a computer or AI software, but Dr. Kaveen is very familiar with human brains, which he looks at on a regular basis. And so it'll be a really interesting blend of humanity, medical science, primal health, with technology, with computer science, and I'm sure it'll be bound to inspire all of us. So please give a warm welcome to Dr. Kaveen Mistry.
Thank you for that introduction. A big hand to Pennovation and Philly AI Connect for putting together this platform. I've learned so much at all the events here from companies like Google and many others. And when Kirsten reached out to me and said, we want you to talk about the human side of things, my first thought was, how do I compete with all these sexy topics like agentic AI? You know, and then one day I'm home and I'm passing by my son's room and I peek inside. My son is 11th grade, his name is Sai. I peek inside, he has his shirt off and he has his pants on and he's scanning his pants with his phone. And he hits enter and this voice comes on and it's Marco. And Marco says, "Sharp pants, Sai. You're gonna look so dapper in those." And I'm like, first of all, I'm thinking, this technology is so polite and self-affirming, first of all, you know. How many of you recall when you first started using ChatGPT, you know, and you made some changes and you hit enter, you know, my first response said, "Brilliant ideas, Kaveen. Only the best of the best in your industry think like this." And I sat back in my chair. I'm like, yeah, you know, I am full of brilliant ideas, you know. And you know, here's my theory. I think the reason ChatGPT expanded so rapidly has nothing to do with the efficiency or the information. I think it has to do with the fact that every time you use it, it makes you feel like you're the smartest person on earth, right? So my son finishes scanning his pants. Marco comes on. Marco says, "With these earth-toned pants, I recommend a light blue or a pastel yellow." And I'm going, really? I said, you need Marco to tell you that? You couldn't come to your dad? You know? And then I'm thinking, you know, is it just me? Or are all dads competing with Marco? You know? And that's when I texted Kirsten. I said, all right, we are doing this talk, you know, so here we are. All right. And I'm looking at all of you, and you all look so sharp for a Thursday evening. Thank God it was rain and not more snow, right? And, they say that at any given time, only about 20% of the room is mentally here. But I'm looking at all of you, and I think we are doing better than that, right? All right. With all the multitasking we're doing, they say that we're switching tasks almost every 47 seconds, going from text to email to Slack, and which means that statistically, by the time I finish this sentence, half of you should be checking your text messages, right? And if that's not enough, they say the human attention span has come down to, with all the social media scrolling, the shorts and likes. You guys ready for this number? 8 seconds. That is officially less than a goldfish, right? But yet, with all these quirks, here we are developing some of the smartest machines in the history of humanity. So the question for the evening is not if AI is going to get smarter. I believe it already is, and it's going to continue to progress. The question for the evening is, who are we becoming through this process? This question became very real to me 10 years ago. It's 2016. I'm in a doctor's lounge, sipping my almond latte, no dairy, no sugar, pretty guilt-free, And the TV's on in the background. It always was. But nobody paid attention, except that day, the TV had an image of an X-ray. And I said, that's interesting. So I walk up to the TV, and the news reporter comes on. Groundbreaking news. Computer-aided image detection technology outperforms radiologists in picking up disease on X-rays. I go, okay. And then, if that wasn't enough, this guy named Jeffrey Hinton comes on the screen. Some of you may know Jeffrey Hinton. He's one of the pioneers in AI. Jeffrey comes on, he looks directly into the camera, and he goes, we need to stop training radiologists today, because in 5 years, large language models will outperform any board-certified radiologist. And I'm thinking, all right, I'm 40 years old, I got 2 young boys at home, mortgage to pay, and I've been through already 4 years of pre-medical training, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of radiology residency. I have a friend who knows that. He's also a neuroradiologist, and additional training in neuroradiology. And I'm thinking, 5 years? So that day, I'm driving home, and I asked myself this one question, which I believe changed the trajectory of my life. And the question was this, and I believe this question pertains to all of us sitting here. And the question is this: if AI or any technology can do my job better and faster, what is my value in this equation? Not my job, not my title, my value as a human that I'm bringing to the table. And so for the past 10 years, I carried that question with me. And I carried it as I interacted with patients, medical students, residents, other radiologists, other clinicians. And the answer I got back was absolutely fascinating. First of all, after Hinton's prediction, we actually right now have a shortage of radiologists, as Bob knows. And so, but as things progressed, okay, what we find is that we are becoming more and more, the value that we have is way beyond what technology can do for us. And what I found out is that my value had very little to do with just the image detection portion of my job, but that my greater value had everything to do with what technology could not replace. When I walked into a patient's room, my value was the presence that I was bringing to that interaction. You know, before the patient signed on that dotted line for that spine procedure, they wanted to feel me as a doctor. That was my value. After reading hundreds and thousands of scans, I developed the nuance that I could bring to medical students and residents. Because on a neuroscan, sometimes just a dot of a finding in the right location, in the right patient, can have devastating consequences. So even if AI picked up that dot, it wouldn't have the context to know what to do next. And that's the value. And so as technology grew, I grew even more. In my last group, I was one of the youngest radiologists, one of the more junior guys, and they all voted for me to become the vice president of the group. And I was honored because they saw that value. And beyond that, I saw that administration was good, but that I could add more value by training the next generation of doctors. And so I switched to my current role as a core neuroradiology faculty at the St. Luke's Healthcare System. Very glad to be there. And you know, as faculty, we evaluate residents, but they also evaluate us. And they generally say good things. And there was one comment that came back from one of the residents, which really stuck with me. And the resident goes, above all things, Dr. Mistry is committed to making us better doctors. And when I read that comment, I said, that's it. That explains the arc, because the issue is not about AI replacing humans. The issue is humans disconnecting from their humanity and their human potential. And in the long run, I don't think AI is going to replace humans, but AI will replace humans who have lost touch with their humanity. And so over the years, I started studying people of value. And what I saw was that people of value in medicine, outside of medicine, had a certain pattern. They gravitated towards 5 key qualities, which gave them the edge in the age of AI, that made them irreplaceable. And I boiled these qualities down to an acronym, HUMAN. So the first quality that we see in these high-value individuals is that they have the ability to be here. They are less concerned about their digital persona, but are more concerned about their palpable presence. This is the presence that walks into a room. This is the presence that a patient feels. The second quality that these individuals have is the ability to be undistracted. And what I mean by that is that these individuals graduate from knowing a little, or knowing a lot, about a little, to knowing a great amount of knowledge about few things. And so what we see is that when people tend to focus and develop mastery, it gives them the insight and the intuition to innovate within this space. After reading hundreds and thousands of scans, now I'm at a point where we are able to train and work with AI models and refine AI models, as Bob knows. The next quality we see is that these individuals are meaningfully driven. They're able to take an inner drive. For some people, it's communication. For some people, like my wife, it's creativity. In my case, it's education. And connect their meaningful drive to their work so that every day that they work, they have purpose and passion, because that is what people follow. Next, these individuals are strategically aligned with others. They mature from having an individualistic mentality and going from independence to interdependence. They realize that there is value in creating tribes and teams and cultures of trust, because ultimately it is in collaboration and co-creation that's what moves things forward. And lastly, these individuals graduate and evolve not just from self and teams, but they realize that there is something greater than just developing yourself and a team, but they chase a much larger cause and a larger vision, where even when they're gone, the mission continues so that they're never forgotten. So these 5 qualities are not soft skills. They are survival skills in this age of AI. And so as we look at this, we create a framework for being more human. And tonight, we're not going to get into all of these, because this could easily be a 2-day seminar giving you the different frameworks for all of this. But we're going to dive deeper into the first quality of being present. But before I do that, I want to take the pulse of the room here. I know AI is expanding across industries, right? How many of you here, by a show of hands, have a sense of anxiety, apprehension, to the degree that you feel like AI may replace your role or something, what you're doing? By show of hands. And how many of you have that? Okay, so good chunk of the room, or part of the room at least. And what we're seeing here is not a technology problem, but this is a human disconnection problem. Because I believe that we are at a time that we have never seen before, in a sense that this is the time we can actually leverage technology to be more human. And to that effect, we're bringing this framework to the corporate arena, where we can align with technology to become more human. And if some of you are in the corporate arena and corporate training and you want to beta test some of our framework, please talk to me. We can work with you. But what we found is that when we were working on this, we said, why should this knowledge only be available for the corporate arena? Shouldn't all individuals in any job be empowering themselves? And so we said, let's open up this discussion for individuals. Let's show people how they can leverage technology to empower their humanity. And so we created a free focus group, and you can grab this QR code. And if you want to be part of this conversation, we will talk about tactics of how you can use technology to empower your humanity. And so let's talk about presence. The first element we talked about. When I think of presence, I think about a time my wife sent me out on a honey-do list. My wife's sitting right here. And how many married men here? A show of hands? All right. You guys know what a honey-do list is, right? Honey-do this, honey-do that, right? There are 2 rules of a honey-do list, right? Rule number 1 is none of the items on the list are optional, all right? And rule number 2 is you must go in order, right? Pick up the super greens from Whole Foods, then get the rye bread from Wegmans, pick up the poster board from Staples for the school project, then on the way back, go to Lowe's, get the firewood, and boom, not an ounce of gas is wasted, right? Only a woman can design a circuit like this, because us men, right? That would have been like 3 trips, right? So here I am. Here's my list, my honey-do list. The first item on my honey-do list is pick up cheese from Trader Joe's for dinner party. And I said, okay, easy enough. So I walk into Trader Joe's with my list. This guy spots me from across the room. He walks over and he goes, I see you got the list. I say, yes, sir. He goes, what does it say? I said, it says cheese from Trader Joe's. He goes, what type of cheese? I said, I don't know. It just says cheese. He goes, all right, let's figure this out. He goes, walk with me. So I'm walking with him. He goes, tell me about your dinner party. I'm telling him what we're serving, what we're having for drinks. He walks me to this cheese area. And then he gives me this overview. He goes, we got young cheeses. We got old aged cheeses. We got Swiss, provolone, pepper jack. But he goes, for you, we need something special. He goes, I present to you our 1,000-day Gouda. He goes, here at Trader Joe's, we go all over the world searching for the best cheesemakers. And he goes, once in a while, we find a gem. And he goes, there is this family in Netherlands that specializes in aging cheese. And they've found the secret to allow the cheese to lose moisture in a way that it doesn't dry out, but develops this salty caramel taste, which is to die for. But he goes, don't take my word for it. Let's try it. He opens up a packet, he cuts a piece, he takes a piece, gives me a piece, we put it in our mouth, and then he goes, see? Aren't you transported to another world? And I'm going, yeah. And then he takes this new packet. He goes, you know what? Take this home. Your guests are going to love it. But if they don't, bring it back. We'll refund you. We'll get you another cheese. And so I'm walking out of Trader Joe's, not with cheese, but an experience, right? And it wasn't about technology. It wasn't about efficiency. It was about a culture of presence that Trader Joe's has developed. And I know some of you are hearing this story and you're going, all right, Kaveen, I think you've gone too far. You walk into Trader Joe's, this one guy is exceptionally nice to you, and now you want to extrapolate it to this culture of presence. Just for you skeptics, I did a bit of digging. So an average grocery store does $350 worth of volume per square foot. Whole Foods does, with more premium clients, more premium products, does $1,000 per square foot. Phenomenal. Trader Joe's, $2,000 per square foot. Does a culture of presence pay? Yes. So the question becomes, can we learn and teach presence? And the answer is yes. In fact, there is a formula for presence. But before we can answer this question, we got to ask, why are people not present in the first place? And one of the things we see is that people are in their head and are not fully embodied. In fact, when you go to acting school, the first few classes are all about arriving and being present. And so the best way we've found to be here is by dropping from your head into your body. And the way we can do that is by this element of primal physiology. But instead of telling you, I'm going to show you. So everybody on your feet, let me show you something. All right. So what I want you to notice is that your ears are more anterior than your shoulders right now. Notice that? This is what we call as a forward head posture. This is what technology is doing to us. Every time we're looking down at the phone, our head moves into a more forward head posture. What I want you to do is I want you to take your index finger, put it on your chin, and push it back so that your ears align with your shoulders. You'll notice that change, okay? You can relax now. As soon as you do that, what happens is that you go from a position of weakness to a position of power. People notice that when you have that alignment, and you're more present, okay? Second step, I want you to take your shoulders back and down, okay? Watch your shoulders back and down. Our shoulders are normally forward curved. This is us interacting with technology. When you move it back and down, what it does is it turns our sternal angle from facing down to up. And it go from a position of weakness to what we call is a primal alpha posture. And we study alpha males, alpha females, they always have an upturned sternum. So when you walk into a room like this, you project power. At the same time, you are present. Make sense? Have a seat. So for all you single guys, I just gave you a recipe before you walk into a bar to align yourself so you're the alpha walking in, all right? So the first issue is that people are in their head and not their body. When you can accomplish this, you can move on to this next element, which is called present psychology. What we see is that people are not focused on the now, and that makes them lack presence. If I take an inventory of everybody's thoughts right now, right? If I took everybody's thoughts and I took an inventory, it would fall into two buckets. One bucket would be thoughts about something in the past, some regrets of the past, something you did, something you said, something somebody said to you. You agree with me, right? Something that happened in the past. And the second category is going to be some anxiety about the future or some anticipation of the future. And you keep living that. But very rarely do people actually have a thought about what is happening in front of them. And there you lack presence. And so what we see is that how do we grab people out of the past and the future into the now? And the way to do that is by anchoring into something that is happening in the now. Well, in the now, you got your heartbeat, you got many things happening in the now, but the best tool we found is your breath. Because you cannot breathe in the past and you cannot breathe in the future. You have to breathe in the now. So breath awareness gives you present awareness. And so actors, before they go on stage, will take 5 deep breaths where they're observing their breath. Not controlling their breath, not taking an overly deep or anxious breath, but just observing their breath. And what that does is that yanks you out of the past and the future into the present. Now when you walk into the room, what happens is that you can feel the room. You can sense the room. And it gives you an ability to respond rather than react. And as a leader, it makes you very powerful. When you take this element of primal physiology and present psychology and combine with the last element of personal connection, in this day and age, real connection is becoming rare. How many of you agree? Very rarely do people look you straight in the eye and are only connecting to you. But if you're able to do this and combine it with the other two elements, you create what I call is a formula for wow. And when you look at your life and you look back at your life, I believe it's going to be like a necklace of pearls. And each pearl, if you subtract all the tragic elements, but your necklace of life with all the pearls, each pearl represents a moment of wow, if you look back. It would be a moment where somebody deeply connected with you, a moment where somebody was really present with you, or a moment where you were present and looked at a sunrise or the Grand Canyon or something like that. Your life is just these moments of wow to wow to wow. But if you develop presence, it's not only a gift you give yourself, but it's a gift you give to others. And with this formula, you can hopefully one day be a pearl in somebody else's necklace. So I believe presence is something that we all can work on and carry with us. As we conclude here today, I want to say that we are empowering technology at a great rate, but we need to empower humanity even more. And I want to conclude with one story. I lost my dad a few years ago. And during his last week in the hospital, he developed this incurable form of lymphoma. He was very healthy till 80. And during his last week, he called me into the room, and he held up a picture of an Indian Navy sailor. And he says, "Kaveen, do you know who this is?" I said, "No." He says, and he told me the story that the sailor was a son of a cousin of his who was born handicapped. And as the story goes, this woman was born handicapped, and shortly after her parents passed away, the rest of the family kicked her out of the house, and she was basically homeless. And she reached out to my dad across continents and said, "A time has come where I have to essentially beg for food." And my dad, from the other part of the world, made one promise. He said, "For as long as I live, you will never need to beg for anything." So he paid for her education. She gets a job. She meets another handicapped person at work. They get married. He pays for the wedding. They have a child. He pays for the education. That child grows up and becomes this celebrated sailor and officer. A family going from homelessness to a successful family, all because one man from the other side of the world decided to step in. And my dad, as he's told me this story, he looked me straight into the eye and he said this. He goes, "Kaveen, you're a good doctor and you're going to do good things." But he goes, "Your greatest gift is the fact that you can give." And he goes, when you go through life, he goes, there are going to be moments where everybody steps out. You're going to hit situations where friends leave, families leave. He goes, when everybody steps out, I want you to be the one that steps in. And so guys, as we end here today, I just have a simple message that as we empower technology, I believe it's very important to empower our humanity. I want you to learn to be more here, learn to be undistracted, learn to be meaningfully driven, learn to align with others, and ultimately develop a cause or mission large enough that you are never forgotten. And I hope that when the time comes and the moment comes where you hit a situation where everybody walks out, I hope you're the one that has enough humanity in you to be the one that walks in. Because AI is not going to walk in. It's going to be you and your humanity that walks in. Thank you.